Oliver lived in a small, creaky house at the end of a quiet street. Since the passing of his beloved wife, Emily, life had become a lonely struggle for him. The once cheerful home now felt empty and quiet, with only echoes of laughter and memories of their happy times together. Every room reminded him of her presence, making it hard to stay motivated. Every day began the same way. Oliver would wake up to the sun peeking through the dusty windows. He would shuffle to the kitchen, where he prepared a simple breakfast of toast and tea. With little money saved from his former job, he often found himself choosing between paying bills and buying groceries. To make ends meet, Oliver took on odd jobs around the neighborhood, mowing lawns, fixing fences, or running errands for his elderly neighbors. Although he didn't earn much, he did what he could to scrape by. His free time was spent in solitude, tending to his small garden that was almost as neglected as his spirit. Each plant represented a piece of hope that one day things would change. However, he found it hard to smile when he passed by the park filled with families enjoying their days together. The laughter of children pierced through his heart like an arrow. But Oliver had not completely given up. He still took long walks at sunset to clear his mind and remember happier times with Emily. As he strolled through the park one evening, he noticed how vibrant life continued around him while he felt stuck in place. Unknown to him at that moment, his ordinary routine was about to be disrupted by the arrival of someone who would bring unexpected warmth back into his life, someone who might just change everything for him. On the other side of town, a mother named Sarah struggled to provide for her 3 young triplets, Mia, Leo, and Ava. Their laughter once filled their small apartment, but now it echoed like a distant memory drowned out by hunger and worry. After losing her job at a local diner due to cutbacks, Sarah found herself unable to pay rent or buy food, and the weight of her situation began to crush her spirit. Each day felt like a battle. With no income and little savings left, she often had to skip meals so her children could eat. The pantry was nearly empty, just a few scraps of rice and some canned beans remained. Sarah tried to make meals stretch by mixing ingredients creatively, but the kids were growing restless and cranky from hunger. Their little tummies ached for more than just basic sustenance. Despite their dire circumstances, Sarah held on tightly to hope. She told her triplets stories of brighter days ahead, painting pictures of their future filled with food and laughter again. Yet, as the days turned into weeks, the reality became harder to ignore. Local food banks were often out of supplies, and she felt ashamed asking neighbors for help. The weight of seeking assistance weighed heavily on her heart. One chilly afternoon, as they walked through the park in search of something warm to eat from the food truck that occasionally visited, Sarah noticed how carefree other families seemed. The sight made her stomach twist with envy and sadness. Mia tugged at her sleeve, pointing out happy children on swings while Leo and Ava clung to her side, their faces pale from hunger. Desperate for change yet unsure where to turn next, Sarah continued pushing forward for her children's sake. Little did she know that fate was about to lead them toward a remarkable new beginning, one that would change not only their lives but also Oliver's as well. One crisp afternoon, Oliver decided to break his usual routine and take a longer walk through the park. The sun was setting low in the sky, casting a warm golden glow over everything. He hoped the fresh air would clear his mind, even if just for a moment. As he strolled along the winding path, he admired the children playing on swings and families laughing together, their joy contrasting sharply with his own solitude. Meanwhile, Sarah and her triplets had ventured into the park too, drawn by the smell of food from a nearby vendor. With pockets nearly empty, they were on a quest for something warm to eat. Mia, Leo, and Ava held hands as they walked, their little faces full of expectation. However, as they neared the food truck, disappointment washed over Sarah when she saw the long line of people ahead of them. She knew it could be hours before they reached the front. While waiting, the triplets began to lose interest. Leo tugged at his mother's shirt, whining about hunger, while Ava stared longingly at a child devouring an ice cream cone. The sight made Sarah's heart ache. She wished more than anything to be able to give her children simple pleasures like that. At that very moment, Oliver caught sight of Sarah and her triplets from a distance. He noticed their worn clothes and the way they clutched each other tightly. They looked so small and vulnerable amidst the bustling crowd. Something stirred within him, an instinct to help someone in need. As he approached them, he overheard Sarah trying to reassure her kids that good things were coming. Taking a deep breath, Oliver stepped forward and introduced himself. "Hi there," he said gently. "I couldn't help but notice you seem like you could use some assistance. Would you like to join me for a meal?" The surprise in Sarah's eyes mirrored his kindness as hope flickered within her heart. This unexpected meeting would set off a chain of events neither of them could have foreseen. After sharing a warm meal and pleasant conversation, Oliver noticed how the triplets' eyes sparkled with happiness. Their laughter lightened the burden on his heart and brought a sense of joy he hadn't felt in a long time. Yet, as the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the park, he couldn't shake off the realization of their struggles. Sitting across from Sarah, he could see the weariness etched on her face. It was clear she was doing her best to keep her children's spirits up. The thought of them returning to their empty apartment without any safety or food stirred something deep within him. Suddenly, an idea took root in his mind. "Sarah," Oliver began slowly, choosing his words carefully, "I can't bear to think of you and your little ones going back to that situation after such a lovely day together." He took a breath, feeling both anxious and hopeful. "You're welcome to stay at my house for a while, at least until you can get back on your feet." Sarah looked up at him with wide eyes, disbelief mixing with gratitude. "Are you sure?" "I don't want to impose," she replied hesitantly. "It wouldn't be an imposition," Oliver assured her with a warm smile. "I have an extra room that hasn't been used in ages. My home feels empty, and I would love the company. Plus, I can help, maybe we can come up with a plan for how you can find work again." His own financial worry swirled in the back of his mind, sharing his small space meant tightening his already thin budget. But at that moment, instinct overrode fear. Seeing Sarah's hesitation turned into hope sparked something within him, a renewed purpose. After a long moment filled with uncertainty, Sarah finally nodded, tears shimmering in her eyes. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. Little did either of them know that this decision would unveil new paths and deeper connections between them all. As Sarah and her triplets settled into Oliver's home, the initial excitement soon gave way to challenges that neither had anticipated. The small house felt even cozier now, but with 4 new people living there, it quickly became clear that they would need to adjust to one another's habits and routines. The triplets, Mia, Leo, and Ava, brought energy and joy into the space, but their boundless curiosity often turned into chaos. They were used to playing freely in their former apartment but now had to be mindful of Oliver's belongings. Toys sprawled across the living room floor as they giggled and chased each other, leaving Oliver feeling overwhelmed at times. He didn't want to stifle their joy, but he also worried about keeping his things tidy. Meanwhile, Sarah faced her own struggles adjusting to this new life. She wanted to contribute more but felt like a guest in Oliver's home rather than a resident. Cooking meals was a challenge. She was used to rationing food with little resources and finding creative ways to stretch meals. Now, with access to more ingredients, she felt pressure to cook not just for sustenance but for enjoyment. Despite their differences, the initial awkwardness gave way to moments of bonding. One evening, after they had cleaned up the mess from dinner together, with laughter echoing off the walls, Oliver found himself smiling more easily. The air felt lighter as they played games and shared stories around the table. Yet there were still moments where Oliver's fears crept in, thoughts about money and how much longer he could help them weighed heavily on his mind. Balancing his instincts to provide for them while managing his own feelings of financial insecurity brought him anxiety. Through these ups and downs, however, they began learning from each other. Sarah found comfort in sharing responsibilities while Oliver learned to embrace the noise and chaos that came with having a family around once again. Little did they know that these adjustments were laying the foundation for deeper connections that would transform their lives. As the days passed, the bonds between Oliver, Sarah, and the triplets began to strengthen, woven together through shared meals and laughter. Each evening, they gathered around the small dining table, where Sarah would delight the children with stories from her own childhood. She spoke of adventures in parks and magical places they dreamed of visiting one day. The triplets listened wide-eyed, their imaginations igniting as they pictured themselves embarking on those adventures together. Oliver found joy in preparing meals alongside Sarah. While she cooked family favorites like pasta and homemade sauce, he often chopped vegetables or set the table, bantering with the children as they playfully argued about who could help more. Their laughter filled the room, mixing with the savory scents wafting from the kitchen. It was a sharp contrast to the silence that had once enveloped his home. One particularly memorable night, after dinner, the group snuggled on the couch for a movie marathon. The children nestled against Oliver, who felt a warmth radiating from their closeness that he hadn't experienced in years. As they shared popcorn and giggled over silly scenes, he realized how much joy their presence brought into his life. Each triplet had their own unique personality that shone brighter as they settled into this new routine. Mia, with her endless curiosity, peppered him with questions about everything from stars to dragons. Leo's boundless energy often came out in impromptu games of catch in the living room, while Ava displayed a soft empathy toward others, always ensuring her brothers were included in activities. Despite lighter moments of joy, there were still struggles hidden beneath their laughter. Sarah occasionally grew quiet when old insecurities crept back in during nights laden with worry about finances. Yet Oliver found ways to reassure her, reminding her that they were a team now and would face challenges together. Through these daily interactions and tender moments shared around the table or couch, Oliver realized how profoundly his life was changing. The family's dynamic filled his once empty home with warmth, laughter, and renewed purpose. Unbeknownst to all of them, these small acts of connection were forming ties even deeper than blood, creating a makeshift family fueled by support and love. One sunny afternoon, as the weather warmed up, Sarah decided to brighten the home even more by sharing her passion for cooking. She had always enjoyed preparing meals from scratch and wanted to teach the triplets how to make their favorite dish, homemade pizza. Oliver cautiously stepped into the kitchen, curious to see how this adventure would unfold. Sarah gathered the children around the table, distributing ingredients with a sparkle in her eye. "Cooking is like magic," she explained, mixing flour and yeast. "We can create something amazing from just a few simple things." The triplets watched with wide eyes, completely captivated by her enthusiasm and skill as she expertly kneaded the dough. As they shaped their pizzas, Sarah encouraged each child to choose their favorite toppings. Mia piled on vegetables, pretending to make a colorful garden, while Leo drizzled extra cheese and declared he was making a super cheesy pizza. Ava carefully arranged pepperoni slices in a heart shape, showcasing her softer side. Oliver smiled at their creativity, amazed at how much joy this simple activity brought into their home. Later that evening, as the pizzas baked in the oven, Sarah unveiled another talent, crafting. She had always been good at making things with her hands, transforming old materials into art. With leftover scraps of fabric and craft supplies from home, she proposed a family project, creating decorations for their living room. The children were thrilled as they worked alongside Sarah, gluing and painting to their heart's content. Laughter filled the room as they tried to help each other with their projects, each triplet adding their unique touch. Oliver watched from a corner with pride as he saw their talents come alive. He never knew his shy house could be so vibrant. That night, as they hung up the finished crafts and enjoyed their delicious pizzas together, it became clear that Sarah's hidden talents were not only bringing flavor and color into their lives but also creating cherished moments that would bind them closer together. Oliver realized that in giving Sarah and her children shelter, he had unknowingly opened the door to a new world filled with creativity and warmth, a world he had longed for since Emily's passing. As the weeks went by, the triplets continued to bring a whirlwind of laughter and energy into Oliver's life. Their small acts of joy, like spontaneous dance parties in the living room or their playful bickering over who got to choose the next movie, began to chip away at the sadness that had settled over him since Emily's passing. What once felt like an empty shell of a home now thrummed with life, each giggle and shout echoing with new memories waiting to be made. One chilly morning, when Oliver had planned to stay indoors and tend to his worries, the triplets stormed into his room, bundled in bright jackets and winter hats. "Come on, Oliver. Let's build a snowman," Leo exclaimed enthusiastically, his cheeks flushed with excitement. At first, Oliver hesitated, thinking about all the chores he had left undone. But the sight of their eager faces melted his resolve. "All right," he said with a smile, "let's get some fresh air." Outside, they rolled large snowballs together, their laughter ringing through the winter air. Oliver found himself caught up in the joy of the moment, forgetting life's stresses. The triplets cheered when their snowman began to take shape, complete with a crooked carrot nose and mismatched buttons for eyes. As they finished, Mia suggested they name him Mr. Frosty, and for the first time in years, Oliver felt a genuine smile spread across his face. In moments like these, he realized how the triplets were helping him heal. They filled his days with noise and activity that distracted him from lingering thoughts about his late wife. Instead of bitterness or sorrow, he found himself cherishing these moments of playfulness and connection. As they transitioned from their snowman back to hot cocoa inside, Ava curled up on his lap and asked if he could tell them a story about when he was a child. In that moment, surrounded by cheerful chatter and tiny fingers wrapped around steaming mugs, Oliver understood that the triplets were not only rekindling his spirits but also inviting him into a world filled with laughter and hope again, a world he had almost forgotten existed. Just as their new life together seemed to settle into a comforting routine, an unexpected challenge arose that tested the strength of their bond. One evening, Sarah returned home late from a job interview, her face drawn and anxious. As she entered the house, Oliver noticed immediately that something was wrong. The triplets were tucked into bed, but he could see the worry etched across Sarah's features. "Did it go poorly?" he asked gently, offering her a seat at the kitchen table where they often shared meals. Sarah sighed deeply, running her fingers through her hair. "I didn't get the job," she admitted, her voice trembling slightly. "And I don't know how I'm going to pay this month's bills. I feel like I'm letting the kids down." Oliver felt a tightness in his chest at her words. He had been managing to cover some of the household expenses with his own limited savings, but he knew it wouldn't last forever. "We'll figure it out together," he said firmly, trying to reassure her. "We're a team now." However, things took a turn for the worse when Ava came down with a bad cold 2 days later. The little girl had trouble sleeping and was often coughing, which made Sarah even more anxious about her health and their financial situation. They couldn't afford a doctor's visit without stretching their already thin budget. Oliver watched as Sarah juggled caring for Ava with her worries about money. He realized how hard this was for her and felt the weight of responsibility himself. One evening, as he prepared soup for Ava, Oliver approached Sarah with a plan. "What if I take on more odd jobs? I can manage some additional work to help us get through this." Tears filled Sarah's eyes at his offer. "You're already doing so much," she protested softly. "I want to help," he replied sincerely. "We're in this together." In that moment, they reaffirmed their commitment to support each other through challenges, no matter how tough things got. Facing these struggles together not only strengthened their bond but also reinforced the family they were becoming, one built on trust, resilience, and love. As time passed and Oliver, Sarah, and the triplets navigated their new life, significant moments began to shape their journeys of personal growth. One rainy afternoon, when the skies mirrored their heavy hearts, Sarah decided to take the initiative to find a part-time job that could fit around her responsibilities at home. With the kids settled into a routine and gaining confidence in their schoolwork, she felt it was her turn to contribute. That evening, after putting the triplets to bed, Sarah confided in Oliver about her job search. "I'm scared," she admitted, biting her lip. "What if I fail again?" Oliver took a moment before responding, recognizing the uncertainty that had haunted him after Emily's passing. "You've already shown so much strength just by coming this far," he encouraged gently. "The first step is often the hardest, but you have us, your family, behind you." In that moment of vulnerability for both of them, Oliver realized how much Sarah had grown since arriving at his home. She had transformed from a timid mother overwhelmed by circumstances into someone willing to fight for her children's future. In parallel, Oliver faced his own transformative experience one sunny Saturday when he volunteered with Sarah and the children at a community center that provided meals for families in need. Gripping his heart tightly as they served food together, he found joy in giving back, a stark contrast to his previous isolation. The laughter and appreciation from those they helped sparked something within him, a reminder of what purpose felt like outside of grief. As they returned home that day with tired but fulfilled smiles, Sarah turned to him with bright eyes. "Thank you for today," she said. I didn't realize how much we could uplift others until I saw it through your eyes. With every challenge they faced together, from job hunting to community service, Oliver and Sarah discovered resilience within themselves they hadn't recognized before. They learned not only to support each other but also to embrace their individual paths toward healing while building a stronger foundation for their makeshift family. These transformative moments were shaping them into new people who could face life's uncertainties hand in hand with newfound hope and purpose. As Oliver, Sarah, and the triplets settled into their new dynamic, the changes in their lives did not go unnoticed by the neighbors. One sunny afternoon, Mrs. Henderson, an elderly woman living next door, stopped by to drop off a basket filled with fresh vegetables from her garden. "I've seen so much joy in your home lately," she said with a warm smile. "I thought you might appreciate some fresh produce for those wonderful meals you're making." Sarah's eyes widened in gratitude as she accepted the thoughtful gift. "Thank you so much. This will mean a lot to us." The kids gathered around, marveling at the colorful vegetables as Oliver aimed to introduce them to new ingredients that would expand their culinary skills. Word of their blossoming family spread quickly through the neighborhood. Mr. Thompson from across the street, known for his love of tinkering, offered to repair any household items that needed fixing. He showed up at their door one Saturday with tools in hand and a determined look on his face. "I hear that old lawnmower is on its last legs," he said with a chuckle. "Let me take a look." Aside from repairs and food donations, families in the neighborhood began inviting Sarah and the triplets to community events. From bake sales to spring picnics, these gatherings allowed the triplets to make new friends and help nurture a sense of belonging. The more they participated, the more vibrant their little family became within the community. One evening, Oliver found himself sitting outside on the porch with some of the neighbors while Sarah chatted nearby with other parents from the neighborhood. As Oliver listened to their laughter and stories being exchanged, he felt an unfamiliar sense of warmth wrap around him. He realized how far they had come since that fateful day in the park. Both he and Sarah were learning to accept help and lean on others, not only for support but also for friendship. This sense of community began filling his heart less with sadness and more with a sense of hope as he recognized they were not alone anymore. Through their journey together, they were not just forming bonds within their makeshift family but also connecting with a wider circle of neighbors who genuinely cared for one another, a true tapestry of support that turned their once isolated lives into something rich and fulfilling. As the seasons changed, so did the lives of Oliver, Sarah, and the triplets. Their home was now filled with laughter, warmth, and a sense of belonging that had once seemed impossible. With the support of their neighbors and the strength they found in one another, they embraced their roles as a family. On a bright spring morning, Sarah confidently headed out for her first day at her new job, an opportunity she had worked hard to secure. The triplets watched her leave with beaming smiles, their pride in her evident. "You'll do great, Mom." Leo cheered, and his enthusiasm fueled Sarah's excitement as well as her nerves. Meanwhile, Oliver took on a more active role in household tasks, helping the triplets with their homework while also encouraging their creativity with fun projects. He had discovered a newfound joy in being present for them, a stark contrast to the loneliness that had plagued him before. They often spent evenings reading stories together or playing board games, and every laugh shared felt like another thread weaving them closer. One weekend, they organized a neighborhood barbecue to celebrate their community support and to thank those who had helped them through tough times. As friends gathered in Oliver's backyard, filled with the scent of grilled food and laughter resonating in the air, he looked around and felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude. Sarah stood beside him, sharing knowing smiles as they watched the triplets play with other children. In that moment, Oliver realized how profoundly his life had changed. The emptiness that once occupied his heart had been replaced with love for Sarah and for the triplets who now felt like his own. Together they created a home where hope flourished, each family member contributing their strengths to build a future filled with promise. As twilight settled softly around them that night, Sarah leaned against Oliver while the children chased fireflies in the yard. "I never imagined we could be this happy," she whispered, her voice tinged with wonder. Oliver wrapped his arm around her shoulder. "Neither did I," he replied. "But we did it together." In that gentle embrace, they understood they were no longer just individuals seeking solace, they were a family bound by love and resilience, a new beginning blossoming in their hearts.